Hey, what's up, guys? This is Brian at Whisper Status 74. Welcome to the community. Welcome to the channel. If this is the first time you are seeing me, please consider liking and subscribing. We are real tech for real people. Today's video will be on Samsung and how I think they are poised to not only dominate this year, but for many years to come.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Brian. Thank you so much for joining me. Today's video will be about Samsung and talking about not only their CES showing, what they showed there, which we will get to, but them as a company and how they're positioned. This is my thoughts more on them as a company, their innovations, what they're looking to do, more than it is about what they actually showed. Samsung has been very tight-lipped on what they're bringing. They're definitely sticking with their LED lineup, even though they've innovated with QD-OLEDs and a micro LED. They're staying with a bezel-less design, following the same format they followed the last few years with their 8K lineup and their 4K lineup. They've been very, very successful with that, which is kind of the point of the video. Why I wanted to do that is Samsung is the #1 TV maker in the world, anywhere from 30% or 20% of the market, which they control, split upon everyone else after that, with TCL catching up with LG, Sony, TCL, Hisense. That group is way behind. What's amazing about that, and you can look that up anywhere you want, but it just comes out to where Samsung always seems to be in the lead. And they're often the most criticized. They're easily the most loved and most hated manufacturer out there for TVs, maybe even for phones. But what prompted me to do this video is while I broke down Sony CES, I found LG CES to be a little bit dull, kind of samey, other than little tweaks here and there. Samsung did most of their, other than the micro LED, and speaking about QD-OLED, they didn't show a lot. But what they did show is that they are cutting edge. They are always innovating and advancing. That's their goal. And what I think is so interesting is they've really cornered that market on super high end and then super affordable by having all markets covered, whether it's the brands you see at Costco and Walmart or at the highest end store. They have panels that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and ones that cost a couple $100. They have sizes from 98 to 100 inches to little monitors. They do cover all of their bases. But I do want to talk to them, or talk about them, I should say, in this regard, is they don't care what we think. And I think that is fascinating. I've had my challenges with Samsung. I was a Samsung guy for many years and had several panels that I loved. I ran into some defective panels that turned me away from them, yet I do recommend them every day. Now, why do I still recommend them? Their market share is so large that even my experiences with them is just a sliver. This is very important when you're recommending TVs. Yes, I've had bad experiences with this model and that model, but there's so many sold, it's hard to really say these are all garbage. And they have such a large amount sold that even all of us having these experiences, it's still such a small percentage. Now, before I go on further, I want you to think for a second that when you look up the #1 TV brand in the world or #1 TV model, a lot of times you'll see a Sony or an OLED or whatever. You're looking for market share. Best selling, who sells the most, who does the most volume. That's something that we don't focus on as much as we focus on what's the most popular in terms of, was it this TV last year or this TV this year? Samsung doesn't seem to really care about that. They're always innovating. They're always moving forward. Now, you may disagree with that and say, oh, wait, well, let me go back to this real quick. When we go into our comments in YouTube or even with different channels, Samsung, is sometimes really killed in the comments. And we do say like, they need Dolby Vision. They need OLED. They need this. They need that. They must literally be sitting there laughing, being like, we're #1 by this much. Everyone else is playing catch up. Similar what Samsung and Apple and the deals they made. And the Samsung, Apple using their screens for their phones is making me think that's exactly where Samsung is going. LG, hit you know, they did so well with having these other companies buy their OLEDs. They become the one OLED company to supply all these different. And here's Samsung behind the scenes innovating this QD-OLED, you know, technology, which has all the strengths. It's like the blade of OLEDs, all the strengths, none of the weaknesses, doesn't burn in, extra filter on it to make it look this way and that way, make it bright, no ABSL, no burn in, no this, no that. And while we're all buying OLEDs, they're out there creating not only a new processor, things of that nature, but a whole new screen that Sony has already bought. So while we are there criticizing, like I've done many times, they need Dolby Vision. They're going to be behind without Dolby Vision. They could care less. They really could care less. And I could prove to you that they don't care. The new Sony QNED OLEDs, you know, the new, I should say, QD OLEDs, QNED, that's a LG mini LED. The QD OLEDs, Sony's will have Dolby Vision. The Samsungs won't. What I'm saying to you is that the panels can do it, their chipset can do it, they're just not paying the licensing fees. They just don't care. There's something very gangster about them telling you it's not necessary. And for many of you that have had Dolby Vision for a long time, or even playing Dolby Vision games, a lot of people are like, I guess it's okay, but Samsungs look this way. They have a very distinct look. They made their minds up that they don't need it. So my point of it is, who's the fool? They still have a huge market share. They didn't do the licensing fee. They're still outselling everyone else. And we're here criticizing that they don't have Dolby Vision. They do lead a lot with gaming innovations. They've always kind of been ahead on gaming, them and LG. But their ability to say, hey, we have some of the same features, if not all the same features, as an LG without the risk of burn-in, that really, for a lot of people, I guess I should say this, with LG having so many gaming features, but having burn-in be a fear, for a lot of people that were outside of the enthusiast realm, really said, like, well, they have all the gaming features, but they burn in. Then Samsung is just sitting right there saying, look, I have all the same gaming features for the most part, and we don't burn in. And we're bright, and we're punchy, and we're clean. They have great processing. They have, so my point is, we judge them and we say, like, yo, what are you doing? Do this, do that. And the reality is they're really killing everybody else in many, many ways. We could argue the rest are catching up. Some of the research I did had, had Samsung at number 1, LG at number 2. They had Sony at number 3, Hisense and TCL kind of tied for 4 and 5. Skyworth at number 6, Panasonic at 7, Toshiba at 8, Sharp at 9, and Vizio at 10. There's a lot of articles that are that way. I'm not sure of the numbers by 100%. That's not really the point of the video. The point of the video is they're so gangster about the way they act. No, we're good. Dolby Vision? No thanks. OLEDs? Nah, I'm good. They keep putting out LEDs. They have micro LED. And what I think is so fascinating about what Samsung does more than any of the other companies, like Sony with OLEDs, how many years ago they created it in the 90s or early 2000s, they had the first OLED. And then never do anything with it for the most part. Then you have LG selling them OLED panels. You follow me? Samsung will show you their innovation, micro LED being the best example, and then hang it out there for 5 years, 6 years. Now, what that does for so many of you in the comments, and I've done this for a number of years now, is you hesitate. And you're thinking, I do want a TV, I think I'll buy, but look at Samsung. They're innovating, they're moving forward. Micro LED, and you almost inadvertently go with Samsung to remain in that family. I've watched many comments where they do that. Constant innovation. Even if you don't like their innovation, their design, elegant design. The bezel-less TVs of the last few years are the best looking TVs out there when you walk in store. Now, OLEDs for the longest time were thin, black, they were very minimalist, but they still had a bezel. Samsung was like, nah, we'll get rid of that. We'll do bezel-less LEDs. The picture quality, whether you like it or not, the punchy, the saturation, whether accurate or not, it really depends on what the customer feels when they walk in that building. I do a million Best Buy walkthroughs. I've done videos like that for years. The Samsungs always leap off the wall. And more importantly, with their marketing, Samsung is always, unlike Vizio, TCL, and Hisense, who, yes, are kind of catching up, they are so prominent within store. You walk in, that Samsung kiosk is always the biggest in the store. It has their flagship 8K right in the middle, or their flagship 4K, whatever they had, before 8K arrived. Then they have right down the line so for this year, for instance, your Q900A. They would have that one either in Magnolia or Dead Center. Q800 would be around. Then you'd go your QN90A. You'd have your Q85, 7, 6. They would take up the entire area, showing you each model. Where LG, for instance, would have maybe a C1, an A1, not a QNED, but they would have their slim panels from a couple years ago, but they wouldn't quite have their cutting edge. I didn't see a QNED 99 in their store. I saw a lot of their nano cell TVs there, making you realize, okay, well, where's your G1? It's over there somewhere. They make everything compact. They totally control the floor. Even Sony, Sony's interesting when they put up their Best Buy area. They'll have the largest, cheapest model. They'll have their 8 series, or underneath their 900 series, their 85 series, no local dimming, really large. Then they'll put a high-end TV right next to it. And I feel like that is their way of saying, hey, look, this TV is really expensive. It's small. Look how cheap this big one is. And I feel like they inadvertently sell a lot of those TVs because they look so expensive or so cheap in comparison to a smaller OLED. But rarely in a Best Buy, when you walk into their main kiosk, not Magnolia, you'll walk right in, you won't see a Z9J sitting there. You didn't even see a Z9D back in the day. They have those in the back by themselves. But when it comes to the kiosk, what the customer sees, not the enthusiasts, what the customer sees, Samsung is all about that. They're all about taking their biggest and best, throwing it on the wall and saying, look, there it is. Also launching first. Last year, the QN900A was the first 8K panel released. It had a huge lead. It typically does come out first. By the time the Z9J came out, even the Z9J being on sale at about $7,000, it's almost $8,000. The QN900A is a bargain. Did the same thing the year before with the 900T. They're just firsts. Now, for me as a critic, I'd say, well, why are you going first? By the time these other models come out, your TV looks kind of old. Yeah, well, they sell initially to those that are attracted to them in store. Then by the time the competition rolls their stuff out, whether it's LG and Sony, that TV has already dropped. They strategically wait as they drop. As the new panel drops at its top price, they drop their price down. It's brilliant. You don't have to like them. So my point of this video, as I've said that several times, is you don't have to agree, but you got to respect the hustle. You have to respect the fact that they've stood by LED. They've gone mini LED. Most of us aren't a big fan of 8K, and unlike a lot of channels on this platform, I've spent a lot of time with their 8K panels. I don't see a huge jump. I think 8K at times can be a detriment. It doesn't matter. The reason it doesn't matter is that the consumer walks in and sees 4K, 8K. And they go. It's that basic. Now, when I say the average consumer, people get very confused. They say, well, the average consumer, what do you mean? Financially? No, the average consumer can be very wealthy. What I mean by average, what I mean is the person that walks in with the least amount of knowledge. It's not a financial thing. They walk in, I have clients and friends and people I know that have all kinds of money. Hey, bro, what's the best TV? Before I can even say anything, was it Samsung? Definitely a Samsung. Is it a Samsung? So you have all walks of life. You have wealthy people walk in and say, where's the Samsung? It's over here. Wow, look at that. Look how it looks on my wall. Their demo material's unmatched as it comes up right behind me. And then you have, LG, still considered, now LG is second from what I understand. I may be wrong about this, but LG is so creeping up. And I imagine with LG, their market share is more to do with selling panels to other manufacturers. But LG for the longest time was not a good brand. It was like, ugh, they've all been bad brands at one time or another. They've all started that way. But Samsung still rings out to the very wealthy and to the very value-based person. They walk into a Walmart, there's a Samsung. They might have an Insignia or these other brands, but hey, that Samsung badge. You walk into, as I mentioned, Costco, BJ's, Samsungs are everywhere, and they're just that well positioned. The innovation, hey, we're doing 8K. No one else wants to do 8K. We'll do 8K. Micro LED, we'll put that up modularly. We'll show it to where it's not even accessible from you. Now, this year, Micro LED was available to see, $100,000. You'll see one, maybe not this year. The year after, you'll see like some insane one that might be 30, 40 grand. They don't care. What I think they do is they put that out there to say, hey, look, these guys aren't innovating. We are. Here's the proof that we're thinking about the future. And our present is a subset of that, meaning micro LED, that's what we have our eye on. Oh, here's a mini LED. Most people have no idea that mini LED was with TCL, the R635 or the 8 series. Most people have never seen those TVs. Now remember, guys, when I say most people, those of us in the comments that typically watch channels like this are enthusiasts. We are not the majority. We are so ridiculously the minority. It's not even funny about the way we view TVs. Yes, the forums, the YouTube, Reddit, whatever, that's still the minority. It's enthusiasts getting together and speaking. The average consumer, again, average not being financial status, still looks to Samsung. They are a market leader. TCL, Hisense, as much as those brands are catching up, they are nowhere near touching the design of Samsung. No near touching this bezel-less, beautiful brushed design. The TV since the KS9000, these TVs were silver but thin. The design was elegant. They kick everybody's butt in that regard. That's what people really care about. Even going with mini LED, I promise you, was about being thin more than blacks. Sony last year stayed LED. What happened? Sony's X95 was very thick. Sony's Z9J, very thick. Most people walk into a showroom, they look at the bezel in the front, they look to the side, that TV's pretty thick. The reason I know this, they do this in focus groups all the time. What's most important? The design actually comes out on top over picture quality a lot of the time. Their One Connect box. Their One Connect box, when they first came out with it, which had upgradable HDR. Those kinds of innovations. Their local dimming, the way they had their local dimming on the sides and they moved it to the edge, all to make the TVs more slim. Now, did that affect how the image looked and created haloing and flash lighting? Yes, it did have its drawbacks. Either way, when you walk in the store, you're blown. Like, these are, most of them are Samsung demos that you see behind me. They grab your eye. Marketing primarily, innovation and marketing always work in tandem. Now, why am I not talking about what they showed at CES in this way? It's not really important. It's not really important. They didn't reveal their lineup in the way that other companies did. Sony showed, boom, 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 we're doing this. And then once people saw that the QD-OLED was going to Sony, they were thinking, oh, wow, I can't believe, look, they got the jump on Samsung. Get the jump on Samsung at all. Samsung said, look, we'll sell you the panels, take them. And here's the thing. This is how I look at them letting Sony do the panels. You put it out first. Go ahead. I mean, there are panels, but I feel like they're basically saying, look, I built this really great car or this awesome plane. You test it. Go ahead, you test it. You do your thing. They get any time if there's any issues with those QD-OLEDs, they can always say, well, it's Sony's processing, it's not us. But they're still getting the credit for the innovation. And someone's paying them God knows how much for those panels. To me, it reminds me so much of companies like Unreal back in the day or id Software back in the day. Eventually, they're like, I don't need to make any more games. They're buying our engines. They're buying the Unreal, for instance, used to be a game. If anybody didn't know that in the audience here, just buy the engine, Unreal Engine 4, Unreal Engine 5. I feel like LG killed it with that thought process, but Samsung is now taking that to another level. However they figured it out, whether it's the blue filter or whether it's the QD-OLED spectrum, their color, and think about this too with Samsung, with quantum dot, color volume, color gamut, 10-bit, 12-bit. Can they do 12-bit? I don't know, but hey, we're talking about it. They're really ahead of that. That might be marketing. They're all about 4K 120, all about VRR, all about all these different things. Now, the one thing I will criticize Samsung for, and I do hope that they really fix this, is do 2 game modes. They are still LEDs after all. Please don't mess with the backlight when you're putting in game mode. Do not change the backlight. I would suggest this. If you can't do the same game bar that LG does, and I know Samsung has a game bar, but where you can increase the black level or lessen it, do your gaming pro input lag mode and then do a cinema mode. That banging you hear is actually the pipes in my room. It is very cold here on the East Coast. Do a performance mode and a cinema mode. I'll never buy one of their panels with an LED if they continue to ruin the contrast ratio in gaming. But other than that, they're cutting edge. As I mentioned, the One Connect box was amazing. Even though the One Connect box for the QN900A is the size of a PlayStation, it's still amazing innovation. Allows the panels to be thin, doing that all on their own. Again, focusing on color volume, color gamut. They're all about 240 hertz gaming, things like that that are coming. But what's so interesting about that, if you're talking about something like 240 hertz gaming, that's great if you have a PC, but for consoles, you're still kind of stuck with whatever the game and the consoles are doing. It doesn't matter. It'll look great on the side of the box. That is all that matters. Back to CES and what Samsung is up to. Micro LED to me is the absolute truth. It really is. I feel that Mini LED is a stopgap. What I saw from Mini LED last year, I felt could be done with standard LED. I felt that all Mini LED did last year was allow the panels to be more slim, a little bit of a thinner bezel, a little bit thinner all around. I don't think it made the blacks any different. Now, that's arguable. We can talk about that all day. I think they can do the same thing with LEDs, more LEDs. The idea is to make the the panels more thin, to make them more desirable. Again, appearance, showing up in store. That's basically what they did with CES. They put the micro LED there, talked about the QD-OLED, barely showed anything from their lineup, and people still talked about them because of their innovation. Even if you disagree, their innovation, 8K was all people could talk about, even if they were afraid of it. 8K was what they spoke about. And those of us that were enthusiasts still walked in going, 8K? Should I get that? Do I need that? Now, a lot of us know we do not. There's plenty of people out there enjoying their 8K sets. Those TVs still sell really, really well. Considering the price drops are very minimal this year with their 8K lineup, it shows they sold better than they have in previous years. They may have made less, but the fact of the matter is they still cover all the bases. The QN90A, which is their Samsung flagship, offered how many sizes? Or their 4K flagship, in comparison to the X95, which is his direct competitor. The Samsung QN90A has 55, a 50, it's got a 40-something inch, 65, 75, 85. It's got all these sizes. They have 82-inch TVs, where when you look at Sony, it's like, oh, we have the 65 and the 75 and 85. No more 55. So it is amazing how they managed to, again, push the bar, whether you like it or not. Push the marketing. Talk about what's ahead of you while impressing you with their innovations happening in front of you, with their design and their marketing. They really are brilliant at it, and I do give them credit for this. They do not care what I think. Now, they may pay attention to larger channels or whatever. I really still think they don't care. Think about Dolby Vision when it first came out. For years, you need 4,000 nits. See Dolby Vision, you need 4,000 nits. Well, there's no TVs doing real, true 4,000 nits, especially after calibration. They're laughing. Right. Dolby Vision, how'd that go? You paid the licensing fee. We're still selling more panels. I like Dolby Vision. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not important. It's not important to them. So I think for a lot of the consumers, it's not important to you either. That's how good their marketing is. That's how good their thought process is. They basically say, look, I'm telling you, we're leading it. I don't think you need it. You're like, yeah, I don't need it. Even the OLED thing, never really going with OLED, even though they have the OLED phones, even though that's their number one seller, Galaxy and the Notes, that's what I use every single day. They still didn't do OLED TVs. Then there's this QD-OLED that no one can stop talking about, and they're letting Sony go first. In the way that's funny, because I'm telling you, they're letting them go first. They're still getting credit for the innovation. So to me, just because Sony will be first to market doesn't really, to me, give Sony that advantage. Yes, it'll say, okay, yeah, here's our TV, first to market. It reminds me how like even Sony with their heatsink being first to market. I promise you LG had a heatsink ready. I'm sure there was some deal where they said, look, you can release we won't do a G1 at 83. We'll do one next year with a heatsink. I'm sure they paid a little bit extra to say, okay, we'll take the first 83. You cannot do a direct competitor. You tell me that doesn't happen? Now, all of a sudden, LG G2, we got a heatsink, 83 inches. There was no 83-inch G1 last year. They easily could have done a G1 last year with a heatsink. They just didn't. But I do think they're catching people sleeping as far as innovating OLEDs. Samsung has found a way. We'll see how it is in practice, but it's their drive. It's their eye on the future while keeping the present consistent that I think people are really attracted to them. Their sound bars are excellent. Their electronics are excellent. They're consistently most popular. They're consistently in your face. And as I mentioned, the design, you're consistently saying, wow, that's nice. I don't know if I want one, but it's nice. While you and I are critiquing every single zone and contrast ratio, people are walking right by us with truckloads of these. And these are the ones that they buy TVs in their whole house. How many hotels have you stayed in? See a lot of OLEDs in hotels? No, you see a lot of Samsung LEDs. So you think about this quickly. We talk about like F1 racing or, companies that invest in that make no money off of the racing. They make most money off the consumer card that sells. And what they do is they basically have their high-end marketing from their F1 cars or whatever racing you're talking about, and they kind of convince you that that's trickled down to their consumer vehicles. I feel like Samsung has mastered that. They've mastered that. Look, we have this expensive micro LED from 2 years ago that's modular. It's $1 million, but check it out. This LED behind you is phenomenal. I do feel that becomes something that's infectious, that people are attracted to that. Again, putting gamers first, but putting gamers first where it's not an oxymoron, meaning they have monitors and, well, obviously LG has monitors as well, but Samsung saying, look, our top models have the best gaming features and their LEDs, they will not burn in. There's nothing that OLED can say other than, yeah, we have safeguards to keep that from happening. Is it 100%? I mean, it's not 100%. Samsung's like 100%. They're still the most popular. They're still the most sold. And this video is more about respecting their confidence and their drive. And unlike other market leaders in the past, name it Motorola, whatever you want to throw out there, they don't rest on their laurels. They continue to innovate. They've been on top since 2005, 2006. They continue to say, no, the future is this. Look what they did with 8K. Released 8K, 3-4 years ago. They still didn't let go of 4K. Now, I criticized them for this. I thought, well, if 8K is the future, why are you doing QD-OLED at 4K if that's the future? Well, simple. Even though it's expensive, for instance, the LG ZX at $30,000, they're going to be able to sell you a 50. So, interesting thing. LG ZX is an 8K OLED. It was, and so was the ZX, and you had the Z9. And they were 77 inches, 88 inches. They had very random sizes, but they were $30-something thousand. Samsung is going the other way. I'm going to give you 55 and 65. They're going to be very, very expensive. $7,000, $10,000. That's easier to swallow than some giant $30,000 or $40,000 TV. People will actually buy that. Now, to me, that's intentional. If I look at it this way, if you say to yourself, now I would never buy a TV that expensive or that small, but the average person, 55 inches and 65 inches is the sweet spot. Remember, average person not meaning wealth, meaning that's the size that most people covet. They find the 75 inches are too big, 85 inches, I don't want this big monstrosity in my room. Even people with very large rooms don't necessarily want a huge TV on one of their gorgeous walls. They want something small, elegant, put it in the corner, hang it. I don't want to see it. That's why the frame is so freaking popular. The frame! I mean, talk about innovation. The frame, a TV that people love, regardless of its contrast ratio or even how it looks in store. It's a piece of art. I can put like they really do innovate. The video is going on long enough, but the point is why I think they're really going to dominate is one, staying the course with mini LED, offering innovation on the panels they already have and the panels that people are already accustomed to. We're very excited here with Sony for the backlight master drive, and they're going mini LED. Well, I'm sure Samsung is going to see that and also counteract that by not putting marketing speak and making their panels even more expensive. They do launch expensive. They do go down rather quickly. That way they sell who they sell to. By the time the other group puts their stuff out, they drop their price. By the end of the year, you can pick a lot of them up. And these Super Bowl sales that I've read to you guys a few days ago, Samsung had quadruple the amount of sales of any of the other TV manufacturers. They're not worried about TCL and Hisense. They're not even in store for you to really see other than a random kiosk here and there. And even if you do see a TCL in store or a Hisense, typically they're not shown well. They look dim. Their demo material is not great. Samsung's demo material is off the charts, jumps off the screen. It's amazing. So to me, would I buy one? Get your game mode, get your game mode fixed. To me, micro LED would be the first Samsung I would buy. I know that that's years away, but the average person buys a TV last year. By the time, and this is what we have to think about, by the time micro LED is ready, for those of you that buy TVs every 3-4 years, it doesn't seem that far away. You just bought a TV, you're thinking, oh, look, I'll just sit back and watch these guys. I'll be ready when this comes out. QD-OLED to me is not anything that I'm attracted to until they get larger. I'm at an 83-inch TV here. I'm only going to get to 85. I'm not going to go any larger than that, but 55-inch TVs that cost triple what this might cost don't interest me. But I'm in this industry. I do switch out panels every couple of years, so I view it differently. The way to really view it is not the way you view it as an enthusiast, but as the common buyer, how they see it. And that's why Samsung dominates, will dominate, and will continue to dominate in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know the video is all over the map. It is a discussion. I don't have to show you all the models and all that. Samsung really didn't show much. They don't have to. That's the confidence that I'm talking about. Dolby Vision? No thanks, I don't have to. OLEDs? No thanks, I don't have to. I will do this. Quantum Dot, 12-bit, they'll throw all the marketing around, whether you like them or not. You have to respect the hustle and you have to respect their innovation, whether it's marketing or not. They're always moving to that next thing, even if they keep that thing out in the distance. I'm Brian at Whisper Status 74. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the comments. Love you guys.